we have bladder 24, right? The name of bladder 24 is Chi Shu, which is the ocean of chi. And then below that, we have bladder 25, which I'll put right here in for you. Which is the large intestine control point. So let's just put in large intestine right here. And below that, of course, you have bladder 26, which is Guanyuan Shu. So this Chi Hai, I'm just going to write it down in English, Chi Hai and Guanyuan. These are not organs in the strict sense of what an organ is, but they're sort of organs in the more Chinese thinking of functional systems in the body. So let's backtrack on this a little bit. One interesting thing you'll notice about this is that triple burner shu point, bladder 22, lies right between the fire vertebra and the water vertebra. Do you see that? Because it's on the lower border. How do we find these shu points? We find them on the lower border of the spinous process of the vertebra. That means that they lie between these two vertebrae, more or less, right? A little bit more in relation to the upper one, but still somewhat influenced by the lower one, which is interesting to think about too. That therefore implies that the triple burner control point has some elements of fire and some elements of water, right? And that obviously is borne out in clinical practice. When we're working with the triple burner, we're looking at accumulations of phlegm nodulation in the body from a lack of water and therefore a lack of circulation. And we're looking at actual problems with water management as well as with fire issues, right? So triple burner channel, for example, is most correlated with thyroid functioning, which is most correlated with how the kidney is working in relation to fire and water energies. So that therefore implies that the kidney control point, Shen Shu, bladder 23, is actually between water and earth, right? Now, as we know in Chinese medical thinking, earth soaks up water. When do we want to work on the kidneys in Chinese medicine directly is often when we see edema, when we see puffiness at the ankles and puffiness around underneath the knees and maybe puffiness on the face, and you see that somebody has water retention. And that water retention means that the tissues cannot actually regulate how well they absorb and discharge water. That is, the earth energy cannot actually regulate water very well. And so water overflows into the tissues of the body. We say that it's spleen qi deficiency, which is earth deficiency, as well as a kidney issue. And here's this control point for the kidneys that sits right between these two element vertebrae, as I'm suggesting. So let's keep going down. So this third lumbar vertebra is kind of interesting because the third lumbar vertebra, which I'm going to suggest to you is an earth energy, and all the points around it have some relationship to earth. The third lumbar vertebra corresponds to something in Chinese medicine we call the daimai, which is the belt channel. And that's this idea that you've got an energy that circles around your waist and basically kind of holds the middle of the body energy together. And if you look at just the simple anatomical structure of somebody's belly, you're normally going to find a little fat pad. In fact, you have to, even on really thin people. You're going to find a little fat pad right on top of the iliac crest right here. And if you follow that fat pad back, it actually intersects L3 pretty exactly on anybody. And this zone of this fat pad, which then it continues around to the navel, is earth energy. It's an earth energy zone. It's controlled from the wood energy, because wood covers earth, so you control it from gallbladder 41, in confluent point of the daimai. But itself, it's an earth energy. Because it's earth, it means it's in the middle. right? So if we look at the height of somebody, we're generally going to see that around here is going to be the middle of their body. And it connects to the navel, which is the earth energy source of the mother. You know, when you're in your prenatal state, you're in the womb, all the nutrients are coming in through the umbilical cord, through the navel, and there's that constant flow of earth energy nourishment. The acupuncture point here is called Chi Hai, which means ocean of Chi, but I'm still going to argue it's an earth energy. And I think alternative names for bladder 24, which I'll pull up on my computer and talk about probably after lunch, just to kind of illustrate this concept a little bit more. But I'm going to suggest that if you're dealing with patients with daimai issues, and the daimai is this sense of this, you know, the belt of energy that runs around here, consider working at L3. I think it was Li Shizhen in his exposition on the 8 Extraordinary Channels who makes the point that the daimai goes through gallbladder 25, it goes through the kidneys, and it goes through the spine. Right? And some people say it goes through Ming Men. Of course, Ming Men is right underneath L2, is right here, right? So there again, we've got another daimai connection. Okay, let's move on. So the fourth lumbar vertebrae, I'm going to suggest to you, is connected to the wood energy, the green force. I don't like to use the word wood because the Chinese character is a tree. It's not a table, it's not a lumber yard, it's a tree. I mean, really, actually, it's interesting how as we've translated Chinese into English, and even as the Chinese translated the ancient concepts of the 5 elements into modern thinking, both the Chinese and the Europeans ended up killing the tree. The Chinese talk about the mu as wood, but actually they more reference something dead than something living. Where the original character, it's just tree, right? So here we've got this green force energy at the level of L4. And I'm going to suggest that vertebrae actually corresponds quite a bit to the uterus and to the prostate and to the wood force, the green force of the uterus and the prostate. Now you can make a good argument that the uterus, and therefore also the prostate, are wood organs in Chinese medical thinking, even though that's not in your textbooks per se very much. But you can certainly argue it because, you know, we're always using the liver to regulate the functionality of the uterus and the functionality of the prostate. The prostate tissue embryologically derives from the same core tissues as the uterus tissues. And there you have it. That's what I think. I think this corresponds to, fundamentally, to a uterine energy at L4. So then we get down to L5, which I'm going to suggest to you is a metal energy. Now notice that the Neijing tells us that the way to control the large intestine is right here, right between the wood force and the metal force. Right at bladder 25, which is the back shoe point of the large intestine. Now, if you think about the large intestine in element terms, the large intestine is a metal organ that wraps around the belly. It wraps around the uterus. It wraps around most of the intestines. It's a kind of metal container force. And it's very involved with rhythmicity. Of course, the large intestine is interested in a 24-hour rhythm. Right? And we know that inside the large intestine there are patterns of peristalsis and movement horizontally and vertically and in different patterns around the muscular walls of the large intestine that very much it's expressing movement. One of the strategies for treating the prostate when it is enlarged and toxic and swollen, and also for treating the uterus when it is, you know, backed up and blocked with endometrial problems and other uterine type problems or fibroid problems and so on, or heavy menses, is you regulate the large intestine. Right? You regulate the large intestine, you can very often clear the excess blockage at the level of wood, right, at this level here. So I'm going to suggest to you that bladder 25, bladder 24, very much uterine regulating points, as well as large intestine regulating points. And you can think of the large intestine as metal, but that peristaltic action of it also has components of wood. know, that relate to when you get the large intestine in balance, it regulates the uterus, it regulates the prostate, it also regulates mood. It regulates what we call liver Chi stagnation. When somebody's liver is all tight and tense and they're irritable and frustrated, in the old days, they just got their intestines moving. They would even just purge them, just to clear all the heat out. And in modern times, we tend to do that a bit less, but we do regulate the intestines. And as soon as you start regulating the function of the large intestine and making it healthy and normal and connected to a daily cycle, then you see the mood improves. The mental process, the liver Chi stagnation, literally the Chi stagnation moves.